All right, folks, welcome back. Well, we've got our drums and our triple gears in place. Now we need to put our 3 shim washers and the clutch basket on. See what kind of end play we have here. Since this was built up of parts and pieces, we might have to do a little machining to get our end play correct. First thing is, these 3 washers can become damaged on the edges because the there's a little gap here in the bushing, same way on the back of the basket. I like to take a sandpaper block and sand. Sometimes I tap the center flat on a flat piece of metal. But when you have the 3 stacked, you have to be sure they completely fit together tight on the edges. So we've done that here, so I'm not going to screw the order up. But I am going to put some oil on both sides without changing their positions. Okay, so they should slide back and forth pretty freely. Then the rest of that oil went down here on the surface. So there, we've got the oil in. The washers. Next thing we have to put in is the key. It's the last big key. Goes in the shaft here. Fits pretty tight, so it's going to have some love to get in there. I'm going to tap it down just a little. Okay, we tapped her home. Now I like to tip the top in just a little bit, just to help get us started with the basket. All right, got the basket. Key is over here, keyway's there. Turn it, it starts down on. Now I'm going to use a big socket. All right, so we're going to drive the basket down. I've got a big socket here. I rinse the inside of it out with some brake cleaner. Then I put a piece of paper towel up inside. There could be some dirt in a deep well socket like this. So here we go. These go on pretty hard. I can look in the hole over here and see half the hole. Okay, now I'm going to get a mirror and take a little look-see. Yep, you got to go down some more. Now as you can see, like right now we've got a lot of end play because we're not cleared out. Okay. Okay, now we look in here. Oh, I might have went too far. Yeah, and we have 0 end play. So I'm going to put the puller in here. That went down easier than usual. We're going to look at that one more time to be sure. Yep, I went just a little too far. That's okay. think we're pretty close. I'm gonna take it a little past because it's easier to tap it back down. Pull that out. Okay, very close. It's kind of a tricky screw to get started, especially with gloves on. I do it every day in my normal job. So, okay, that started in about a thread's worth. The basket. You can see here we still have end play, which is good. It's got to go down just a frog hair. Okay. Bolt started in. You hear that oil? I believe that tolerance is between 10 and 27 thousandths, something like that. This is a pretty snug fit into that hole. I'm going to tap that just to be sure we got all the pressure off it. Yep. All right, now do we have any end clearance? Yes, we do. See, I'm picking up. Hear that oil? That means we've got probably pretty close to the right clearance. Be right back. Okay, folks, we're back. So I have my dial indicator here, my magnetic base stuck to the flywheel, and we're down touching the drum, not the basket, the drum. So we need to know the total amount of clearance. I believe it's between 10 and 27 or 28,000, somewhere in there. So let's see what we got. Hopefully we don't have to take this thing back apart. All right, here we go. We're just, right there is 0. Got to try and lift evenly. I would say it's consistently well, let's just say 25 thousandths. So with used worn parts, you know, and everything's kind of got to play nice together, I think we're going to leave it alone. I mean, I would have to say the average is 24 to 25 thousandths. So we should be good to go. So all right, I'll put that away, and then we'll get ready to put the clutch discs in. All right, I'll be back. Okay, folks, we're back on our transmission assembly here. Before we get ahead of ourselves and put the clutch discs in, this locking bolt here for the clutch basket. First, we gotta be sure it's good and tight. Okay, she's tight. Now you see it's got two, it's got a hole this way and one this way. Now we have to put a cotter pin in there to keep that from loosening. So you have to think about which way is it going to want to turn to loosen. So you put the cotter key in or pin like that, and you see that's going to want to rotate out. So this cotter key has to make contact with the clutch basket or it doesn't do any good. So we're going to tap this clear down. Okay. As you can see, the one tail is touching the basket. And we're going to take the top tail and bend it up onto the bolt. It's kind of hard to do, there's just not a lot of room in there. Let's tighten up. That's what we needed right there. Sometimes you just gotta have the right tool. So you can see the bottom one is touching the hub. There's a little indentation there. The top one is holding the key tight to the bolt. So there we go. All right, next we'll be putting in our clutch discs. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is put a little oil around the bottom there. There's 25 of these clutch discs, and of course there's two different kinds. These are the ones that grab onto the drum. This is the one that goes in the bottom. It's the one that came out of the bottom. So we drop that in, put a little oil around. Now the next one, style, grabs onto the basket. So then we keep making a sandwich, alternating the two kinds of discs. If you screw this up, the clutch won't release. So you just keep repeating this process, being mindful of alternating the discs. Now, to cheat a little bit, these discs, since they were taken apart and cleaned, have been kept in the order that they were taken out and direction. I don't know really how important that is, but these discs were in good shape. I don't see any reason to put in any other kind of clutch because everything else in the drum was in good shape. Hardest part is cleaning all this stuff up. That's what takes the longest, especially since there's 25 of them. Just keep building the sandwich. These clutch discs are actually in very good shape. It's normal for them to have some dark spots. last one. The last one is just like the bottom one. It's the one that grabs onto the drums. You can see where the friction ring actually sat on that one. So there, 25 of them are in there. You still should be able to rotate the drums, but of course there's much more resistance there because of that oil between the plates. This is why sometimes when the car is sitting running in neutral, why the car will creep ahead is this friction right there. So then we have our pressure ring. Need to put a little oil under that. Like so. Then we have our plate here. We got a little oil on the shaft, a little oil in this bushing. This bushing was okay. Plus, we verified that the plug, we're going to open these up, that the plug was in our shaft here. So the plate has pins on that comes through that hole. Okay? Because this is a 2627, this is a different drive plate. It sits down in the brake drum instead of on the edge. Okay, now that we've got the drive plate here, what I call it, with our pressure plate with the pins sticking up through the holes, bolt holes lined up. Let's go around, start the bolts. Notice I have these screws in the fingers backed off. We'll start these bolts, get them snugged up. Then we got to get them safety wired. Okay, so we're going to just snug these down. Now you'll notice without the spring on, we can still turn everything with the plate on. See, the oil between the discs is what's making it turn harder. But it doesn't turn any harder with all this on than it did without it. So that's good. It means we have free play. Now we're going to snug these down. There again, Model Ts didn't have any torque specs. Just tight. So we'll just keep going around here. Guess the motor is hitting the camera stand. All right, so to me, those feel tight. I saw one video that said about 25 foot-pounds, but I don't, head bolts, yeah, I'll use a torque wrench just to be sure they're all even. But bolts like this, if you're mechanical at all, you know when tight is tight. All right, now we're gonna safety wire. When I worked on race cars, I always disliked this part. All right, folks, there. Well, that last one I kind of had gotten back on, just like riding a bicycle. Been a while. I hate to say how long it's been since I worked on a race car, but it's been about 15 years. So, person tends to get rusty. I've seen where some people run the wire through a certain direction to try and hold the bolt tight and all that stuff, and that's fine if you're really, what do they call it, anal? Is that the proper term? And that's fine, but the safety wire's job is not to hold the bolt tight. Safety wire's job is to keep the bolt from turning and coming out of there if it ever got loose. If you're relying on the safety wire to keep the bolt tight, then that's not the job of the safety wire. So yeah, so there. You do it however you want to. I do it this way. That way if a bolt comes loose, it doesn't get around in here and cause catastrophic failure. So, all right, we want to make sure that your safety wire lets the clutch fingers lift up because it gets bound up back here. All right, so there. Next thing we're going to do is get ready to put the spring on. So hang in there. We'll be back. Okay, folks, we're back. We're working on putting the spring on here. Got my puller set up here to collapse the spring. I really like one that I saw on the internet where it showed using 2 wheel plates, but my wheel plates extras are like 30 miles from here. So this spring doesn't compress hard. You can get it most of the way there with your hands if you're a strong fellow with some weight to you. But anyway, I just took a regular gear puller. I had an extra little hub of like the one that's down here. I set it on top of the basket. I lined up the hole in the shaft with the hole in the basket. Something else to keep in mind is to rotate the spring so that on one side you'll have room to slip the pin in. Sometimes the spring gets in the way as it comes down, so you want the widest area here. So let's just turn this down and see if we can get there. It's not turning hard at all, okay? Now we're gonna need a screwdriver to stick in here because it has turned a little bit. Like that. I need to let off just to maybe go down a little more. It's kind of tricky because the pin kind of wants to go in at an angle. But once it's in there, okay, you just have to not force it. Just keep wiggling. Need to go down just a little more. There it went. Now, you just got to push it inside the basket. Now there's a place in the basket where that pin has to sit. But we can deal with that when we can see what's going on. So you can kind of see what I had rigged up there. Now we need to turn the basket. I call this a basket. I don't know what anybody else does. There, hear that? So there, we are in. Okay, so now we have some pressure on our clutch plates, even with the screws backed out. We will not be able to turn this anymore because of the spring. This was a new spring. So what we're going to do now So I'm gonna grab some tools. We're gonna set the clutch adjustment with the 2-inch method so that the spring height is at 2 inches. You can also go, I believe it's 13/16 from the bottom up here. We'll compare them when we do it. So, all right, stay tuned. Okay, you see I'm using this little, what I call a T-square ruler, set to 2 inches at the top of the spring. So now we need to take these screws and evenly adjust them. See, like I showed before, some of them didn't even have any play or tension on them at all. I would say it'd be safe to take this one a full turn. These are all in half-turn increments because of the cotter pin. Okay, so it doesn't take a whole lot. Okay, let's take each one. Like I say, we're trying to do this evenly. You can kind of tell by how far the screws are down that they should all look very similar. So this is 2 inches from the top of the spring, not the basket, the actual spring. You can do this half turns at a time once you get close. This is not saying that it won't have to be adjusted after you drive it. Boy, that is really close there. So I'm going to take each one another half a turn. All the screws are down about the same. Now let's measure. Actually, that is too much. So we'll back them all off a half a turn. And we should be right where we need to be for preliminary adjustment. These aren't too bad to adjust in the car, so. Okay, we're going to bring you in closer here, kind of show you what we were doing. Okay, as you see, I'm sitting on top of the basket, but I have slid it down so the 2-inch mark is at the top of the spring. Okay, and as you can see also on the bottom, we are basically at 2 inches. If we go a half a turn more, it is too far. So I hope you can see kind of what we're doing there. See, we're at the bottom of the spring, not of the little hub or the basket. Okay. Now in theory, let's go down here. In theory, down here they said the height should be 13/16 from the plate to the bottom of this little hub. And we're gonna look, and I'll be darned, 13/16. So either method of preliminary adjustment on this will work. We're 13/16 here, 2-inch spring height. And our pin is nestled in where it should be, down in the groove. Now we just need to put 3 keys in here, in the screws. We may have to adjust them in the car, but time will only tell. So we're going to put those keys in, and then this transmission is assembled. So what a deal. All right, I'm going to grab some keys, and I'll be right back. So we're just going to bend these around nice and simple. And there we have it. All right, folks, there we have successfully taken apart a transmission, sorted through 3 of them to get the best parts. We wanted to end up with the wide drum 2627, which we did. We have fixed what needed to be fixed, and we left things alone that were perfectly fine, like a lot of the bushings. We've done the triple gears. We have done the bushings in there. We've got them fit. We have replaced the clutch pack with the 2627, which is different than the earlier transmissions because of the removable shoes. So keep that in mind, because I cleaned up the other clutch disc set first, did all 25 of them, and they don't fit down in there. So we had to clean up another set, but that's how you learn lessons. We also put a new spring on here. We have everything safety wired and keyed like it should be. So next we will be putting the oil pan on this engine, and then we'll get ready to do the hogshead. So there, we are getting closer and closer. All right, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll just keep working away on this old girl. All right, thanks. Later.